Um,
We will share
hello,
Zoom and
hello,
you can share
hello.
area. All right, and good morning, and here we are. Sheena loves to start when I'm in the middle of a sentence. I'm sure when you look at these, I'll be like, yeah. So if this is conversations, oh no, it's not. It's the Bobbi Jo and Sheena show. And this is two best friends hanging out talking, mindset coaches, and we just love to share the knowledge that we have. Out there, people seem so stuck and caught up in their heads, and there is a freedom, there is a peace of mind. It's just listening and changing a little bit every day. That 1 degree, you're sailing across the big ocean, and in 1 degree will take you to Africa instead of England. And today I think we were going to talk about, Miss Sheena, you want to mention it?
It's a favorite quote of mine, actually, that I heard somebody amazing say, and it's not who you think you are that holds you back; it's who you think you're not. I wrote that actually because I created another program, and the girl asked me, what quote did you want? And that was the one. And she goes, what, on every page? And I went, yes.
Yeah.
Basically I thought I was being lazy, but actually I needed to see that over and over again. It's not who you think you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. So number one is, who do you think you are? Number two is, who do you think you're not? Bobbi Jo.
And how I wrap my head around that, because at first I was like, what does that even mean? I mean, I heard it years ago. But it's like, oh, I'm not Oprah Winfrey, so I can't be doing this. Or, oh, I'm not Mike Dooley, so we can't, just like Sheena and I doing this. We're doing this here to just have fun. I know a lot of people out there that are like, well, how do I find you? And they run into me at an airport or wherever, and they're like, how do I find what many people talk like this? So, we're just being Sheena and Bobbi Jo, doing what we do. We talk every day like this. So we started to be like, hey, let's just hit record, which Sheena loves to do in the middle of my conversation. And so it's like, yeah, oh, I'm not Oprah, I can't do that, or I'm not this, I can't do that. Well, it's BS if I wouldn't want it. And so a lot of times we're trying to chase someone else's dream to make it fit in that Rubik's Cube, but that's not it. You got to find yourself, the diamond in the rough, baby. You got to find out what's here. And it takes a little bit of discovery. And how do we do that? We just don't beat ourselves up. I mean, you wrote about that in your book here, Sheena, that if you spent lifetimes and decades of beating ourselves up, that when you just go look in the mirror and go, you know what? I surrender. I just love who I am. And then you start to go, oh my God, not that bad. And you start to have this belief and you can do stuff. And it just all comes out. It's really an amazing journey where I've been. It's been the highs and the lows for sure, but it's beautiful in the end. It's a gorgeous sunset here.
Hmm. I mean, one of my journeys was, I remember like coming to the point of, I think I was about 50, and actually loving myself and really not completely, not completely accepting myself, but I'd actually started to learn to love myself. And then I had a vision, and I'd had quite a few different visions, and one of them was basically that I didn't exist, and that everything I was doing was just, I saw everybody just in this big black hole void thing, and people trying to climb up ladders to nowhere, and we just went further and further down. And it was like, as further and further down, I got the all the qualifications I did for what, for what reason. I actually was trying to prove myself, prove my self-worth, all the
Mm.
stuff that I did. And I literally had this just complete idea that, well, you don't exist. I mean, that's a whole other topic. Never, what I'm getting at here is that, everything I did was more like a story, and that I was part of the whole thing. And I remember when I woke up and I had to look in the mirror, I was so angry. I'll never forget it. Like, I was so angry. I thought, it's taken me 50 years to get to know Sheena and love her, and now you're telling me I don't exist. I wouldn't accept it at all, Bobbi Jo. The ego was so wrapped around in this separate Sheena, that she was separate from everybody, that it took me 6 months to literally peel it off bit by bit. And then I realized that, it was the love of everybody being one, and that we were all just different perspectives of this one thing. I mean, this is a whole deep story, but I'm only sharing you what the visions that were given
Yeah.
to me, and part of my journey, like, so that we're all one. But then I started to, it was like circle back around to the Sheena story. And it was like, so not so much that when we try to find ourselves, we go into our past and we try to, you know, make sense of
Mm.
everything. But what I realized was I didn't need to. I just needed to understand that I am light and love right here now as I am. And I can choose then the story that I want to speak about now, to choose the story I want to speak about tomorrow. And that I didn't have to
Yeah.
speak about the past anymore. I didn't have to go and fix anything. There was nothing to be fixed. we're all perfect, and I stopped fixing everybody else, and then I wondered, why am I a coach? Because nobody needs fixing.
Yes.
So I'm still here talking. I don't know why. So, but they seem to be great conversations. So I'm just taking you on a wee journey there. Over to you, Bobby Joe.
Frozen, so I have no idea. Oh, there you
There you
are.
go. We're back.
I was like, I don't know why my internet is unstable. It looks good here on my end. Yeah, I've Sheena and I's lives up to 50 have worked not parallel, but then at 50 on where they've been parallel. But at 50, I felt like finally I started to love myself too. But if you had asked me, being a whitewater rafting guide all through my 30s, like, of course I love me. I'm a badass. I raft the Grand Canyon, you know. But it's not. And so it's like it's just learning that grace of loving yourselves of who we are. And it is, I call it the Brady Bunch structure. And don't ask me why I do this little square, but it's like, yeah, we all go to high school, we all find our sweetheart, we go to college, we get the job, we get the married, we have the kids, we buy the house, and then we all get the divorce later. No, divorce is only 35%. I did look it up recently because I married some friends of mine and I was like, what is the divorce rate? I thought it was more than 50%, but they said 35. But it's all the story that we tell ourselves, and we can bring that shit all the way up. And I feel like that's what sometimes counselors do. And are you getting anything from that, and the psychiatrist? But it's learning to change the story. And I've heard, I don't know if Katie Byron does this, but I know I have a woman friend named Ariel. She's an energy healer. And I remember, I had some difficulties. I have some stepdaughters, and there were always some rosy times back in the day. But I don't need to go into the story. And so it's like that to go back into the and say, you know what? Not that I'm lying to myself, but what is it doing good bringing up the drama and being punched in the face? And it's like, what about just, rewrite it that it was awesome and I love. Like I have the awareness that it wasn't that, but I emotionally just want to heal it and rewrite the story. So my stepdad was mean or beat me or whatever. He did a great job. I'm here at this point. Talking about the shit isn't going to help it to this point. So why don't I just go, you know what? Double high five, Ralph. You did a great job being a dick to me because I learned from it. I got to be the strong, passionate woman, not because you did love me and cuddle me and tell me how awesome I was, but because you did the opposite. And I just grew. The lotus growing out of the mud, baby. I just grew out and said, this is who I am. I will shine. This is my light. So stop telling yourself those stories. How many times have you told your best friend that story, about whatever, X story? And it's like, just stop. So a lot of times I'll be with Sheena and talking, I'll be like, oh my God, yeah, uh-huh. And I'll say it kind of sarcastically and wink a little bit. And she knows it's not maybe the real story, but it's the story I choose to go forward in my life. And does that make sense to anybody? It's a little bit of a trip because if you just keep staying in the shit, then you're just going to keep staying there energetically. And you know what? I'm awesome. I'm amazing. I love myself. I love others. And I'm hearing double feed. Time to go to you, Sheena.
And I mean, people would say then, yes, but it's time to get into reality. And here's the thing, what is reality? In
Yeah.
the Oxford English Dictionary, it says real is something that never changes. Well, your story is continually changing, therefore it's not real. How fun is that? That includes the world. The world is always changing, therefore the world isn't real. Huh? Well, if you actually look at some of the quantum physicists, that Boehm is one of them, and saying that, listen, if you don't really like be in awe at your story at quantum physics, you really don't understand. And that's the thing, is about understanding who you really are. And
Mm.
the I am of you never changes, because you always start with I am Sheena. But I can't say I am for Bobbi Jo. Bobbi Jo can only say I am, and nobody else can say it for you. Therefore, you're the only I am in the world. How amazing is that? And that's the bit that's always been with you, that's never moved, that's never changed. But the Sheena's changed. Like this 8-year-old Sheena who would have been in the mirror looking at myself going, do I have big ears, mummy? And to the Sheena that's here now, that couldn't care less, but I actually did grow into my ears. There's been change. In fact, from the beginning of this, audio, video to the end, we will have changed and you will have changed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So what is real? Well, what I have learned is that your truth is your truth. So we speak our truth. There's no need to criticize, or you can help somebody maybe see a different perception, but everybody's right given their view of the world. They can't be any other way. And it's when you acknowledge that, because you've acknowledged it first in yourself, I can then acknowledge it in Bobbi Jo. And if Bobbi Jo wants to go and have a rant and a rave, and I'm just like, well, look at her in her wee story. she knows she's in a story, and it's okay to have a wee rant and a rave. I had a wee rant and rave this morning. I could feel anger coming up. Notice I didn't say I'm angry. I was angry. There's not the I wasn't angry. There was anger arising, and I chose to take that passion. I dropped the story that was in there and I put a different story in, a good one, and I put it on top of all that passion and I spoke that instead. And
Mm.
so sometimes we have tsunami of emotions, learning to ride them, and other times where, well, like Bobbi Jo's taken me whitewater rafting, so and I've seen some of those rapids, and that's what our emotions are like. We're like sometimes like that, and then other times like
You want to hear my
this
version?
is
It's
kind of Bobbi Jo. I'm like this.
Sheena, you'll be fine swimming. You won't swim at all. You'll be fine. If you fall in, I'll jump in after you and swim with you. Couple things with that, right? Doesn't Dispenza talk about that? That, what say something happened to me at 5 or 6 years old. Well, you keep telling that story, and when I'm 15, I was different reality than 6. So the situation, the reality switches a little bit, And then when I tell the story, and I'm 30, I'm not that 6-year old, so I'm telling the story in a different way. So he always says it's 50. The story is 50% off, anyways, by the time you're telling it as an adult, because I'm a different person now than I was at 6 years old. So me telling this story all these years, it changes just a little bit. Hard to wrap my
Chinese
head around
whispers.
that one, but it doesn't even matter. What is that?
Chinese whispers
Oh, I
to
never heard of it
yourself.
that way. And then you said something, Sheena, there too. We don't, if you're out there and telling our stories and you're like, and you're not registering with us, you don't, this is something I found I used to want to do with people is try to go, oh, have them see my point of view. Well, that's not right. My view's right, but it's all right. It's our perspective, right? We do that a lot. I do the little lens. What are you seeing, people? And so, if something we're saying resonates with you, great. And if it doesn't, kind of look at that, kind of be like, I don't believe that story she's saying or he's saying or whatever. And feel like, where is that in you? And why is it that you have to have the need to prove it yourself? And somebody once said, I remember that now, is that, when you just have to prove it more to yourself. Because if I remember somebody the other day, we were having a conversation, and the guy said, a very well educated man, and he said, it sounds like you're trying to prove the point to me than it is to it sounds like you're trying to prove the point to yourself more than you're trying to prove it to me. And I go, oh, does it seem that way? Because I know where I stand. I'll shut up. And I was done because I was like, I didn't realize I was doing that. It was about something metaphysical, and he's definitely more logical and didn't believe the woo woo, And so I was like, oh, I don't need to prove anything on you, brother. Then that's good. You got your story, I got mine, and I'm here. And so catch yourself with that. Like, why do you have to be right? Let people tell their story, and inside you don't have to agree. Bob used to say that. Just agree. Uh-huh. Yep. And if you're trying to switch something, right? You're in a conversation, you don't want to go, you give someone a compliment. Hey, I love that shirt, that hat, oh, that necklace. Where'd you get that? People love to talk about themselves, and whoop, squirrels. They're like, oh, I got a little, and you'll be right off that subject, baby.
It is right, isn't it? I mean, it's just allowing the other people to be right, and it's like, yeah. One of the conversations I remember with a millionaire, and he said that he was born in sin. It says I was talking about that we were born perfect, and I didn't realize that, and that it was to take off the other stories that I needed to do. And he goes, no, 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 no. It says in the Bible you were born in sin. Now, I understood what sin was. Sin is born in separation. So thinking that we're separate, thinking that I'm a separate Sheena and this is a separate Bobbi Jo. And I understand that. And but I didn't want to have the conversation with him. So I just thought, because he seemed very, very strict on what he said to me. And I thought, well, let him have his belief. It said, so tell you what, you live your life thinking you have to make up for yourself, and I'm going to live my life knowing that I just have to disregard some of the crap that's been told and to remind myself that I am actually perfect. And then I'll meet you on the other side, and then we can have a good old laugh about whose life was better. So that's how I left it, and then so I allowed him to be right and I allowed me to be right without even
Yeah.
trying to have a conversation. I just said, well, no, on the other side, let's see it, let's meet there when we're out of our
Yeah.
bodies, when we've transcended where we are. So anyway,
Agreeing,
I think
agreeing to disagree. And when you said there's sin, yes, I remember I just found out that, in all the studying, that sin actually means missing the mark, in archery. So I never really knew that. Like you think sin, sin, sin all over in the Bible, which I've never read, but it's missing the mark. So we're going to recap
brilliant though,
this.
Bobby Joe. Yeah, isn't it brilliant though that when I first found that out, it was like as if I've never done anything wrong except think I'm separate. And
Yeah.
so if I just remember who I am, then then that's the only sin, is thinking you're separate, but you think you have to be separate. There's like something about us that thinks, well, I have to do this, I have to be on my own, I have to do this, and just go, no, 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 you never did anything wrong.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, that it's all unfolding the way it should. And I know that's a hard pill. Some of those who may be really poor and three jobs and second divorce and whatever the story is, but it's your thinking that really did get you there. And you need to learn to think better thoughts so that vibrationally can bring better things to you in your situation. So it's not who you think you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. So that's a one little brain twister for today to think about that, write it down, look at it. Who are you? Who are you really? Who do you want to be? And not someone else's dream. Make up your own stuff. You know, some ways you don't have to reinvent the wheel and come up with a new thing, but then, you put your own little spin to it, your own little color of the rainbow in there. Sprinkle it with some jimmies there, people.
And acknowledge it and accept yourself exactly as you are and bloom where you stand.
Bloom where you stand. And that's all we have for today. Have a great one.
See ya.